In today's video, I'm going to be telling you what you need to know if you're planning a trip to a green list country. From the test that you'll need before you travel to your destination, the test before arriving back to the UK, and of course that really confusing 2-day PCR test. And I'm also going to be telling you about a major flaw in these home testing fit-to-fly kits that might result in you not being able to travel. So make sure you stick around. Now, in my previous video, we already discussed that despite many countries entering the green list, very few of them will actually let you in. So to learn more about that, click the link in the description and watch that video after you've watched this. Now, before we get started, if this video does help you, please hit the like button down below. It really helps me bring more videos to the channel like this. And I have literally spent days researching all of this information so that you don't have to. So please just smash that like button. It takes a second. Okay, I'm just gonna wait for you to do it. Okay, have you done it? Let's get into the video. All right, so let's start this off by talking about the rules that you need to be aware of if you are traveling to a green list country. First off, there is a PCR test that you need to have taken within 72 hours of your arrival to your destination. There is a second test that you need to take within 72 hours of arriving into the UK. And there is a third test that you need to take within the first 2 days of your arrival back in the UK. In addition to that, of course, you need to do your passenger locator form before you fly back to the UK. So that's 3 tests right there. And of course, that all sounds very, very expensive. But I have gone out there and taken the initiative to search on all the different websites, on all the different providers to try and find the cheapest option for you. So first off is the PCR 72-hour testing kit that you need to do before you arrive to your destination. The cheapest option is the home testing fit-to-fly kit. Now, I've seen these priced anywhere from £44.90 all the way up to around £150. However, I have noticed a lot of airlines have partnered with PCR supply companies in order to offer a discount to their customers. So the price of these tests go from around £120 on average to being around £60. But as I say, I did find one for £44.90. And I also assume that when you're watching this video, due to competition, the price of these tests will probably have gone down. So make sure that when you watch this video, you check online for the cheapest option. Alternatively, you can find clinics throughout the country which will offer same-day testing and same-day results for a premium price. And the cost of these tests range anywhere from £100 all the way up to around £250, of course, depending on how quickly you want your result. Now, I've actually gone for the latter option, and I'll explain why later in this video. Now, the second test is a test that you need to have taken within 72 hours of your arrival back in the UK. Now, I originally thought that this might have had to have been another PCR test. And of course, this is really expensive. And especially if you're doing it in another country, they're priced on average at around 100 to 120 euros. However, after doing another load of reading and loads of research on the Gov website, I later realized that they can be one of 3 tests. It can either be a PCR test, or a LAMP test, or a lateral flow antigen test. So then at that point, I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute. I know that the government are offering like loads of free lateral flow tests. So I called the pharmacy and I found out from them that yes, they do have lateral flow tests and they are free to pick up. But then I thought to myself, wait, that sounds way too good to be true. So I went on the Gov website and of course later found out that you cannot use the free NHS lateral flow tests. If you do use one of those and try and re-enter the UK, you will be fined £500. You have to book a private lateral flow test. Now, there is a lot of criteria that lateral flow test has to meet, and if it does not meet that criteria, it will not be validated, thus incurring a fine of £500. And it also stipulates on the Gov website that it is totally up to the passenger to establish whether or not that test is satisfactory for re-entry into the UK. Now, I managed to find one by Pronetics, and this video is not sponsored. They have not paid me to say that, but I did find that, and it was only priced at £26. So if you want it, obviously the link for that will be in the description. Now, the third test is the PCR test that you can take on or before day 2 of your arrival into the UK. However, you need to be aware that this test must be booked before your arrival into the UK, and you don't need to quarantine until you get that result. However, Of course, you have to fill out a passenger locator form, and if anybody on your flight comes back with a positive result on that PCR test, you will then have to quarantine. And there is also a list on the Gov website, which I put in the description, of all the accredited suppliers that provide this specific PCR test. Now, I did notice a lot of the suppliers online, they haven't yet actually updated their list of products, and the only day 2 PCR test bundle that you can buy is the day 2 and day 8 test, but you don't need that for a green list country, so you'll be paying a premium price. However, I did manage to find another offering from Prenetics, again, not sponsored, and they're only charging £85 for that singular day 2 PCR test. Now, you're probably wondering, what is that major caveat in buying that £45 home delivery fit to fly test as opposed to going to a clinic and paying upwards of £200 potentially? Now, there are two major issues with those home testing fit to fly kits. The first is the fact that that PCR test, that 72-hour PCR test, is only valid from when you take that test, not 72 hours from when you receive the result. And the second thing is all the different delivery obstacles. First, the time it takes from which you order the test to arrive to your home. Second, you got to take the test and then drop it off at the post office for the postman to collect. Then there's the time that it takes for the post office to deliver it to the labs. And then, of course, there's that 24 to 48 hour window which they promise that you'll have your result by. So you can see where the problem's gonna lie, can't you? So I think the best way of illustrating this is with an example. Let's say that you're traveling to the Azores on Thursday. However, there is no direct flight to the Azores, so you have to fly from London at midday and then fly to Lisbon and catch a connecting flight from Lisbon to the Azores, landing at 6 p.m. That basically means, according to the rules, that the earliest you can take your PCR test is 6 p.m. on Monday. However, if you take your PCR test at 6 p.m. on Monday, the post office isn't going to be open and there's going to be nobody there to collect it. So let's say you do your PCR test first thing Tuesday morning and you drop it off at the post office at 9 a.m. Now, all of these companies actually offer a 24-hour prepaid postage label for which when you drop it off at the post office, it will arrive at the lab. So let's say the postman collects his post at 10 a.m., let's say. That means the lab will receive your PCR test on Wednesday. Now, on pretty much all of these websites, it states that your test will take between 24 hours to 48 hours to arrive. But, you know, for this example, let's just say, best case scenario, your test arrives within 24 hours. So that means your test is arriving at 10 a.m. on Thursday, when your flight is at 12 a.m. And the deadline for you getting that result is, of course, 6 p.m. when you land into the Azores. Now, of course, this example isn't taking into account the fact that no doubt all these labs from the 17th of May onwards are going to be completely inundated with these PCR tests. So I imagine that that delay in getting your result back is going to be at the latter half of that 24 to 48 hour period. And of course, because they stipulate that on their websites, they're not responsible if you miss your flight. So this basically demonstrates that in the best possible case scenario, you have 8 hours between the earliest point in which you can get that PCR test result back, between the deadline in which you need it to enter the Azores. But, of course, all is not lost, because I found on the Gov website, the options upon entering the Azores are either a PCR test up to 72 hours before, or you can get a PCR test upon arrival at the Azores from a private laboratory and then isolate until you get that result. However, then I did a little bit more reading and then found out that all the airlines have their own rules. Specifically, Ryanair, I read their terms and conditions. Lo and behold, of course, it said that they will not facilitate any upon arrival PCR tests and they will not allow you to board unless you have proof of that negative PCR test. So that basically means that in order to even get on that first flight at 12 o'clock, you need that negative PCR test result, otherwise you're not getting on the flight. So we thought we had an 8-hour window. So, you know, I thought to myself, well, let's say the result hasn't yet come back, but I've got evidence on my phone that I have done the PCR test. Surely I can just tell the airline staff when I get to the gate, look, I've taken the test, but unfortunately the result's not come back yet. Should come back in the next few hours or so by the time I arrive to the Azores. No, apparently that won't slide. Ryanair will not let you travel unless you have that negative result. So look, that is basically why I did not trust my home testing PCR kit. And instead, I've decided to book an appointment in London for a next day delivery. It's going to cost £129, but for me, I would rather pay the extra money for the peace of mind. I booked it with a company called DocTap on Edgware Road. They've not sponsored this video either. The link for that will be in the description below. So look, I really hope this has been helpful. It has been an absolute nightmare researching all this information. And it's become pretty clear to me that the government have made it super difficult because they're trying to deter people from traveling right now. Either that or they are trying to catch you out with fines from if you get the wrong test. But hopefully, having watched this video, you will not be purchasing the wrong test and you will be in the clear to enjoy a holiday on one of those green list countries. So again, if you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below and also consider subscribing to my channel. And of course, I'm going to the Azores next week, so expect a load of videos from there. Check out these other videos on my channel and also last week's video about the green list nations by clicking here. But that is it, and I'll see you next week.